Hey everybody, it's Ken Davenport. Welcome to the Producer's Perspective Live. Tonight on the show, the Tony Award-winning director of Jersey Boys, Ain't Too Proud, and a whole host of others. So do me a favor, give me a bunch of likes, give me a bunch of hearts, and let's raise some money for the Actors Fund. Share this stream with all your friends right now. Let's get to it.
We're getting the band back together, getting the boys who rock again. We're getting the band back together, rocking the face of a place that remembers when some punks from the suburbs lit the sky with too much reverb. We're getting the band back together.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Are you enjoying our new format? Little teaser up front, then the theme song, then we're into the show. It's like a sitcom. It's like Friends. It's actually what I said to Mary. Mary, set it up like Friends. She did. We don't have quite as many people watching this show as watch Friends, but it's not so bad. Hi, everybody. Hello, Alan. Welcome to all of you watching. Happy Friday of a long weekend. It is a long weekend, everybody. I know. This feels like one giant long weekend now, doesn't it? The whole thing. The only difference about this long weekend, this whole giant long weekend, is a long weekend you have to work. That's right. We're still working away during this. Hey, everybody. Hi, all. Oh, thanks, Kathy, for the fancy. Don't forget to give a little to the Actors Fund for those of you who are here tonight. If you're joining us for the first time, to check out Des McAnuff and what he's up to. Do give a little to the Actors Fund. That's why we are here. For those of you who are confused when I said welcome to a long weekend, you're probably watching on replay or you're from Canada, just like Des. So if you're watching on replay, welcome to the show. We know thousands of you watch on the replays, and we're glad you're tuning in. Don't forget, you can donate too. Just because you're watching on a repeat doesn't mean you can't throw a few bucks in there. Look at all the people that have donated to this thing. It's amazing. Thank you, all of you, for doing just that. And speaking of replays, boy, did we have one heck of a show last night. Last night, we reunited my cast and company of Daddy Longlegs in 2015. Look at that. What? I mean, somebody said something funny. I look like Guy Smiler there for a second. It was probably John Caird. He's so British. Everything he says is just funny. Anyway, we had a fantastic time with everybody, and a whole host of people tuned in. That video is racking up some serious views right now. If you're a fan of Daddy Longlegs, go watch it. If you're not a fan of Daddy Longlegs, what is wrong with you? Go to Broadway HD and watch Daddy Longlegs, and you will quickly become a fan. After that, you can check out last night's episode right there. Mary's going to throw it in the comments like she always does. She's very good at this. Some news over the Broadway airwaves over the last couple days. Just a couple quick stories. Did you hear that Smash is becoming a Broadway musical now? Now, it's not Bombshell. That was the musical within Smash. That was rumored to become a Broadway musical a couple of years ago. Now Smash, a musical about making a musical, they're coming to Broadway. They did a concert version of Bombshell virtually, of course, a few days ago, and it has been announced that this is. Did you see Smash? Did people watch Smash? If you watch Smash, let me know. Give Smash some love. I actually loved it, and I thought it was very realistic. People throw drinks in my face all the time. All the time. That was the scene where the producer got a drink drunk. I might be drunk. It is Friday of a long weekend. So what else is news? Oh, we have a fun guest coming up next week. You remember we posted about the Shahs, the Something to Make You Smile daddy-daughter duo. Say that 3 times fast. From Utah, that have racked up like 25 million views of all their songs. They sing together. It's the sweetest thing I've ever seen. The Shahs are coming on the show next week. The Shahs are going to be here. They're going to tell us why they were inspired to start singing together and put that stuff out on YouTube. They're making a lot of people happy. They're going to join us. I think it's June 1st. June 1st, is that right? No, Mary's saying that is absolutely wrong. Ken, you're an idiot. When is it? She'll say in the comments. In the meantime, we do have a lot of Smash lovers here. May 27th, says Mary, is when the Shahs will. Oh, that's coming up right after the long weekend. Okay, everybody, that's about enough of that nonsense. Get your questions ready. If you have questions, are we ready to debut the new question format? We are, nods Mary. So get this. if you have questions, type question like Drew Rieger, one of our best guests. Well, could be a guest. One of our best viewers. He posts question, ask your question. Mary is going to call on you, just like second grade. She's going to call on you, and you're going to get inputted into our stream and be able to ask your question live to Des. You're going to talk to Des directly yourself. I'm just going to sit and listen. It's going to be great. It's going to be like you're at a live conference, but you're not at a live conference. So get those questions ready. Start them now. Start them as we go. And if you're lucky, you could get called on by Mary. So are we ready? Are we ready? Did you give to the Actors Fund yet? That's why we're here. I'll wait. Okay, let's bring on today's guest, fantastic guy and a fantastic director, the Tony Award-winning director, Jersey Boys, Ain't Too Proud, Mr. Des McAnuff.
Hey.
Hi, Des. How are you?
Good. I'm well as can be expected.
Are you indeed in Canada right now?
I'm not in Canada. I left. First of all, I was born in Illinois, just to set the record straight.
And it's because of Scott.
Of Canadian parents. Yeah, and I left. I'm not going to tell you how long ago, but I left Toronto. I grew up there, and I left when I was quite young. I was still 23 when I left, and so I've had a home in New York since then. And let me just put it this way: it's more than 40 years. I did go back to Canada to become artistic director of the Stratford Festival back in 2008. And I, still have family, and, I do projects there from time to time, and I still think of it as my other home. But I'm very confused. I'm somewhat skitsy because I'm sort of half American and half Canadian, and they don't always agree. So
I just love the first day we're talking about. You're like, I'm not Canadian, not Canadian. We're gonna have like headlines on Playbill.com tomorrow. Des McAnuff denies Canadian.
No, I am Canadian. I'm a dual. I'm one of those weird creatures. I'm a dual citizen, which means that I get to pay taxes in both countries. But I was born in Illinois. The story is actually my father was Irish. He was a Spitfire pilot and had made it through the war. And he actually, they moved to this little town called Princeton. My mother got pregnant with me, and he was killed in a car crash when she was 3 months pregnant with me. So she decided that she wanted me to, the only way I was going to be kind of close to him, because he was, gone, was to have the same doctor deliver me that tried to save him. So she came back to Princeton and saw to it that this doctor would bring me into the world. Yeah, so that's how I got to become a dual citizen.
So if you're not in Canada right now, you're not in Princeton right now, where are you?
Yeah, we have a home in Connecticut. We're very blessed, and it's mainly it's kind of a weekend home and a summer home, I suppose. We've never had the opportunity to spend this much time here, and anywhere near this much time. So it's been really, ironically, kind of glorious on that level. And it's a very beautiful place physically, and we have a border collie named George Burns. So it's been great to spend time with George. He thinks that the new norm for him is being the star of the family and getting attention 24/7. So he's going to get a rude awakening when we go back to the city. But I must say it's ironic because it's been a beautiful time, but it's also such a sad time, and so many people are suffering and struggling that it's important wherever you are and however you're doing to remember that there are going to be plenty of people that aren't doing nearly as well as you. So we definitely try to do that.
And tell me where you were when the virus hit the fan, as I like to say, when you realized, oh, this is different and this is serious. What were you doing?
You know, that's a good question. And one of my assistants on Ain't Too Proud reminded me that at the end of January, we had a rehearsal, and I was describing to the actors the Elizabethan Jacobean Theater Company's experience with bubonic plague, and talked about the fact that they often had to go into quarantine and survive for many months at a time. And I was referring, of course, to COVID-19 at that point, still being called the coronavirus. So I guess I must have been aware at the end of January, and it's stupefying to me that people that are smarter and in better positions in terms of authority and so on and intelligence couldn't get this together till March. It's just literally staggering. It's a national disgrace, and we should all be outraged.
And you obviously had a few projects interrupted. Obviously, Ain't Too Proud and Jersey Boys off Broadway as well. What else? Were you in the midst of anything else that got stopped?
Yeah, I mean, there are other productions of Jersey Boys, and they all got shut down very quickly. And Ain't Too Proud, we were in the middle, and we're still doing it, planning a national tour. We were planning a couple of projects for London, and I have a project with T-Bone Burnett and Marshall Brickman, who was one of the writers, as you know, on Jersey Boys, about, it sounds unlikely, but I think it's really quite wonderful. It's about Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, or as T-Bone says, it's about the people that played Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, and people go, well, they were real people. And you go, they were not real people. His name was Leonard Sly, and her name was Frances Fox, and they were Hollywood inventions. So that got somewhat interrupted, but we will be going on with everything. I don't think anything's, I had summer out on the road, and it may be more difficult to get that back up and running. We were right at, we were in Toronto. We'd done extremely well there. The tour was going wonderfully. It was an extraordinary company of actors. And that got, we were I think we were going to Boston. Anyway, it was right, just peaking through these months. And so, of course, we lost all of those dates. So that's, but everything else seems to be, hanging in. And I think summer will have I'm told it will have another life as well. So all things, I think I lost 8 shows in 24 hours. But, hell, I'm still here, and my family's healthy. I have lost some friends, and as I know many of you have, but there are, again, people that are doing that are not nearly as well off as we are, and it's important to think of them and do what we can for them.
It certainly is, which is a great time to remind everyone that the Actors Fund is accepting donations. Just click that button up there and give a few bucks. I'm fascinated by this Roy Rogers idea now. So what attracted you to that, and what attracts you to ideas in general? And I'm going to do this, or in this case, you're obviously involved in the creation of this, but I want to make this a Broadway musical as opposed to a movie or book or something else, which you could probably do.
Well, this one started with Marshall Brickman, and Marshall came to me. This would have been back in I think it was September of 2013, and I love Marshall. First of all, he's a fabulous friend, and he's a lot of fun to spend time with. Marshall was head writer on the Tonight Show when he was 25 years old. So that gives you an idea. And, wrote with Woody Allen, had an illustrious, he was executive producer on a show that starred Dick Cavett, very famous show, and back in the day. And so he's a real, he's just a wonderful raconteur, great person to spend time with. And, he told me this story and told me what the story was. And I was intrigued. And I basically said, gee, I've got an awful lot on my plate. I'm not really sure I can take this on. And he called me a year later and said, would you just read the script, will you? Because we always read each other's scripts and give notes, or more often just moral support. And so I read the script, and it was absolutely nothing like the project I described. Had nothing to do with the story he told me, what he was working. And I was really kind of gobsmacked by that, and really taken by the project. It managed to sneak up on me. So I think often in the theater, and most often in the musical theater, you have to celebrate the idea of collaboration. You're working with partners, with creative partners. And so I think a lot of projects happen and are created in the space between those partners. And so that would certainly be the case with this one.
So one of my favorite things to do before this show is to stalk everybody's Wikipedia page and find some unique detail about it, and then ask you about it. And on yours, I was fascinated.
Warn you, though, my Wikipedia page, I had this happen with a rather well-known newspaper at one point, that they did an article about La Jolla and our triumphs. And I think one of the editors thought it was too much of a puff piece. So they looked up me and I guess the theater on Wikipedia and just took information right off Wikipedia, drew up the guy's article, and he was not pleased. And he was from California. And of course, all the information on Wikipedia was wrong, because they just look at your various credits, and I'm listed, I'm given credit in Wikipedia for shows that I haven't even seen. So that's my cautionary note as you go, fire away.
That's exactly why we do it, because we like to get it. So this will be a good test. So it said that when you were a school kid in high school, that you wrote a musical with your friends, a rock music called Urbania. Is that correct?
Yep, it is, yes.
So, you started as a writer more than a director. Then how did the transition?
Yeah, I actually started as a composer or a songwriter, and pretty much everybody that's around my age had to be in a play guitar, be in a band. It was mandatory. It was essentially you came out of the womb and somebody handed you a guitar pick, and so I started writing songs when I was very, very young, in my early teens, and in fact playing in some clubs in Toronto, and met some actually wonderful artists at that point. And then went from there. I messed around with hair, as everybody did. That was was fronted in a rock band. That it was just automatic. You had to audition for hair, and I didn't get into the final show. I think I made it to the final cut, and I just thought, well, I write songs. I can do this, and there's something to be said for that kind of, that sort of the exuberance and ignorance that comes from that, a time in your life where you're somewhat fearless. And so I wrote this musical, and I was my last year of school and high school, and they got behind it, and they, God bless them, the student council actually paid for it. We had a cast of 50. I went to a big high school. We were there about 3,000 students, and spectacular musicians, several of whom made careers of that. So I had this fantastic band. I wrote the songs, they did the orchestrations. Yeah, and so I kind of woke up one day and realized, well, I guess this is what I'm doing with my life. I never actually consciously made a decision to enter the theater. I just kind of felt like many of us, maybe perhaps you have a similar story, but you just kind of fall into the trap, and it sort of chooses you in a way, or that's Urbania. And just to tell you something personal, since we're on my father, I should say to my mother, opening night, it was a fairly big deal at the time. It was like our teacher at that point had gone around to several other high schools, and we did these preview, versions. So by the time we went up, there was, in fact, quite a bit of excitement, and people showed up, and there were even, you couldn't get tickets, so there was a bit of hoopla. And my mother had never told me much about, Illinois and that part of my life, because we were now in the suburbs of Toronto. And opening night, she said, "I have something to tell you." And I said, "What's that, Mom?" And she said, "You were conceived in Urbana, Illinois." And I'd never heard of Urbana, Illinois. And so again, it's that strange thing, isn't it? There's something in the air. But I guess my father had been at some sort of conference, and one thing led to another, and so they ended up with me.
Are there any recordings of this around? Is there any place we can hear this stuff?
There is an album of Urbania, in fact, but you're never going to get your hands on it, and never going to play it. It was one of those things where these were really pretty serious musicians and singers, and kids that fronted in other bands, young women and young men, and everybody was pretty serious. And the way they made the album is a couple of guys came from the school board with like an old reel-to-reel, held a microphone up, and away we went. So everybody was but it was a great learning experience. The album cover looks fantastic. That looks very, very professional and evolved. But if you actually, I wouldn't dare listen to the album. So that's Urbania.
All right, so there's the challenge, everybody. You heard Des. He said, "I'm never going to get my hands on it." So, hello, internet, worldwide, spread the word. I'll pay $1,000 for that album. Anyone has it, $1,000.
Well, if you get the album, and you come to me first, and I'll match whatever.
I love it.
Whatever is offered for that album.
We'll do a listening party.
What I do have, though, is I have a few years ago when I was first in Stratford. Bravo, they did a little movie on my background as a Canadian and so on, and as part of that I got to play one of the songs from that with my daughter, who at that point had just turned 18 and is a spectacular singer, Julia, and so that was a great thrill, and that is part of the documentary. Is the two of us. I play acoustic and guitar, and she sings. So that really was a great trip. That was really a fantastic. She was about the same age I was when I did this show, and that meant a lot to me. I'm talking a lot about family. It's this pandemic. You start thinking about the things that are really important to you, don't you?
Yeah. Listen, I've been around my daughter more than I ever have, actually, in the 2 years of her life. And that's one of the blessings of this time, and you certainly do. So speaking of how it's affecting us all in that way, so personally, how do you think it affects what we do in the theater? Do you think audiences, if we're talking more about family, we recognize things, we're going to want a certain type of show when this is over? Are we going to gravitate towards the theater because we're going to want to celebrate with people? Oh, wow, someone found it.
Oh, you devil. All right, well, there you go. Well, just please don't play it. I will be so embarrassed. Instead, I play you a song myself from Urbania. But yeah,
you've got a guitar, will you?
The singers, it was the quality of the recording itself. So go ahead. You were asking. So what is going to happen to the theater? One of the things that I've I've actually come to feel quite strongly about, heading up theaters on a couple of occasions in my life, La Jolla Playhouse and Stratford, and being involved with the Dodgers all those years, is that I never really like to predict the art of tomorrow. Marketing surveys always make me very nervous because I think they can only really tell you what people liked yesterday. If you say, what kind of art do you like? Somebody's going to talk about all of the art they've liked up until that moment. This is what I think often can kill an art form. I don't think it's been very good for the movies, as we can see. I don't think it's been terribly good for television, although television, thank God, has had this renaissance. But it's not because of the marketing surveys. It's quite the opposite. It was the mavericks who went against the grain and started to create, work for niche audiences. That's what led to the brilliance in television. But back in the day, when the early sitcoms were fantastic, and then I think the marketing guys got in there and started asking people, what do you like? And so they like this one, they like Burns and Allen, so we'll do another one that's like Burns and Allen. And you have this, that's the pathway to mediocrity. I think that I want artists to show me what I should be watching. I want them to take me to new places. I want them to surprise me. And that's, so I wouldn't predict what's going to happen. I think you will likely see, however, projects that are, that are perhaps even escapist, that take people into worlds of imagination so that they can rest from this. And I think there'll also be projects that are pertinent, that are, that speak to these times. I think all kinds of issues have come up during this coronavirus that need to be addressed. And the theater is the oldest social, moral, and political platform in Western culture. So that's what we're supposed to be doing, it seems to me, is debating these issues and doing work that's meaningful. But I think there'll be room for, if an artist has great imagination, we're gonna make room for you, in the theater. We're gonna make room for you. You take us someplace that's gonna surprise us, and we'll go with you.
I love that. I love that. Especially all of those folks out there just graduating, nervous about what the theater holds for you. You just listen to that. We're going to make room for you. Des McAnuff said it. Okay, let's try to bring in someone from the audience and have a question. If anyone has a question for Des, Mary's going to call on you and bring you right in. I think it's going to take a moment. So we will I'll just ask another question.
On a light too. Am I starting to look more and more creepy? I'm starting to look like I'm in a kind of a bad horror movie here. So I don't know if I actually.
Yeah, let's just put it this way. If this were a scene in one of your shows, you would fire the lighting designer probably.
Is that any better?
That is. Oh, wait. Move a little bit to your.
Outside.
Yeah.
Ooh, if I come around here.
Well, now we can't see you.
Now I need to move because there's nobody there. There I am. Well, I could put that big globe right behind my head. It's not very good, is it? So that's why we have directors of photography. That's exactly it right now. That's why they don't let directors light scenes. That's why I have Howell Binkley right there.
I love Howell. How do you choose your designers? You mentioned Howell. What do you look for in a designer? How do you pick them?
First of all, I like to see people's work. And so one of the reasons I just met with, I bet I've met with 20, 25 designers in the couple months leading up to COVID, and meetings, chatting, sharing war stories, looking at work, asking about work that I've perhaps seen. So I go to the theater a lot. I try to see lots and lots of work. And I think in a designer, I look for somebody who's going to excite me, challenge me, and also that I look for people that are going to be, I think, sensitive to, you know, what I bring to a project, and hopefully they're going to have some enthusiasm for that, or it's probably going to be a pretty miserable ride for everybody involved. So, I've had the blessing of working with some extraordinary designers, and I think of myself on some level as a visual artist, so that's extremely important to me. Also, the fun thing, the reason I think, going back to your initial question, you know, when I still write, and I write quite a bit. I was in fact writing this very day. The thing, years ago, I had a playwright friend, an older friend, and he said to me, "You be careful of directing." And I said, well, why should I do that? Because I figured out at that point that directors could initiate projects, and that was, you know, comes in handy. And playwrights, you know, submissions, not so much. So he said, you be careful of directing. I said, why? You know, why, Harvey? What's the danger? And he said, directing is social, and it's addictive. Writing is solitary, and it's lonely. So if you have, you know, talent as a director, be careful, because you'll find that it takes up more and more of your time. And I think there's truth in that. I think it is a really social thing, you know. Musicals, I think Marshall says that, I've forgotten who this comes from, but musicals aren't, for example, written, they're talked into existence. And I'm sure you'll back me up on that. It's conversations, and that can be the fun of it. So when you work with designers, you want to make sure you're working with people that you really like and you want to spend time with, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them.
I was just talking a few shows into existence today, which brings me to my next question. You're obviously, I'm sure, staying busy, you're writing, you're doing lots of stuff with all your projects. Any tips for all the other theater makers out there to how to stay creative, how to stay energized and positive during these, what can be very difficult times?
That's a great question. Well, so first of all, advice is cheap, or in my case, free. And I would be very careful before I followed any advice from the likes of me. But I think the one thing I do pass on that I learned back into my Toronto days in my early 20s from a wonderful director named Bill Glasgow. And he said, you can't do this alone. And so even if it's on Zoom, however you can do it, you have to do it with others. You know, now maybe there's the odd, very eccentric, you know, solo project that involves them, but even then you need audience. But most projects, it takes a group of us. If you're an actor, you want to find a director, and if you're a, you know, director, you want to find a designer, and so on, and you find a group. And so the one thing I would say, even in times like this, is find your people. You know, find the people that you can do this with, that you can create with. I think that's very important. Now, you can't do that 12 hours a day right now, unless you're psychotic. You could spend 12 hours on Zoom every day. So the other thing I would say is that I think being an artist is often about consumption and production. You know, there are periods where you need to study, and you need to read, and you need to contemplate, you need to, in a sense, meditate, and you need to dream. You don't necessarily have to produce every day of your life. It's a good rhythm. If you're a writer, as all writers know, if you can do 2 or 3 hours a day and be disciplined about that, that's a good idea. I live with a sculptor, and she's extremely disciplined about you know, her time in the studio. So that's great. But it's also okay to say, you know, I love Calm Toy Bean, and I'm going to read every Calm Toy Bean book I haven't gotten my hands on. And that's also a, fantastic thing to do. Going back to, the family thing, my family's from Ireland, and as I mentioned, and a lot of them are from a border town called Newry. And there happen to be these two wonderful books that have come out. One called Milkman by Anna Burns, spectacular novel. And the other one's called Say Nothing by Patrick Noonan Keefe, which is a nonfiction book. And they both focus a lot on the Troubles and the 70s and that. And so, normally I might not have gone to both those books until, I don't know, it might have taken me till the end of the summer with the other reading I have to do. But one of the I think hidden blessings, or perhaps not so hidden, but one of the quiet blessings of this pandemic is it's a chance to read. It's a chance to learn, to grow, and to feed your soul and your brain and your imagination. So it's not just all output.
I think we have one of our viewers standing by to ask a question. Let's bring her on. Taylor Penny has a question for you, Des. She's going to pop up any moment. There she is. Hi, Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
Go ahead, ask your question.
So my question is that as you're a citizen of both the States and Canada, sorry, did you face any barriers or kind of face any negativity being an American working in the Canadian theater or Canadian working in American theater?
Gee, that's a fantastic question. Regrettably, there's prejudice wherever one goes. And, I've had great luck bringing some of my Canadian colleagues to the States, some of the people from the Stratford Company, Paul Nolan, brilliant New York actor, Chelina Kennedy, who's done extraordinary work, and they both came out of the Stratford Company. Bruce Dow, a remarkable actor, and I think America's a somewhat larger pool, and so and we can sort of slip in. If you grow up in Canada, you can kind of slip in and hide. It's kind of like there was a whole National Lampoon thing about that years ago. Where Canadians were actually taking over. We look like you, we dress like, you, and so on. And the other way, Canada's a tremendously generous place, but America is is basically 10 times the size of Canada in terms of population, and so I think Canadians understandably are perhaps a little bit wary. And we're in Canada is so bombarded by American culture that finding a cultural voice is extremely important. I will tell you, when I moved to New York, and I had very good luck right away in New York because of a wonderful Canadian named John Hirsch, who introduced me. In fact, that's how I met Michael David. I met Michael right after my 24th birthday, a producer I work with to this day, more than 40 years later. And so I got to gig right away. I got to meet Joe Papp, and one of the playwrights there was very welcoming. Ed Bullens, who was a wonderful writer who ran the new play department at that point, sort of young playwrights, and he was incredibly great to me. But the one thing I had to do is I had to change my accent. If I said, oh, I've got this wonderful new project, somebody would say, project, Canadian, Canadian. And so by the end of that summer, I came to New York in May, and by the end of August, I had changed by and large my accent. You may still pick up on a tiny little bit of it here and there. The other day I said, rather than decal, we were talking about protecting our birds here, and I was talking to my wife about, and I said decal, and she said decal. What's a decal? And so once in a while, I still get trapped. But you know, by and large, I think the border is fairly fluid. I have a dear old friend, and I'm honored to have him as my friend, you know, Christopher Plummer, who's maybe the greatest Canadian actor of all time. And he's has very strong opinions on this subject. He thinks it's really important for Canadians, as we have for years, to, you know, to really go out into the world and work with the best people that we can. And of course, that's what he's done. He set an example. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a good one. Are you Canadian?
I am, yeah.
All right, and where are you from?
I'm from Burlington.
Okay, it's not. Yeah, my folks are all in Hamilton. It's
Yeah.
not going to slow you down. It's a great place to grow up. You know why? It's got a great education system.
Mhm.
So without even, you know, knowing you, I bet you're well educated.
Thanks.
All right.
Well, thanks for being our first viewer question to appear on the show, Taylor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And as we can all see from the sun setting behind Mr. McAnuff, I think we've come to
Am I
the
getting really dingy? Yeah, let's see what we can do now.
It's beautiful. Oh, ooh, look at that.
Oh.
Look at a gorgeous spring summer night there in Connecticut.
You know, the designer Tom Ford has a whole description about how you're supposed to light yourself. It was in the New York Times, and foolishly I paid no attention. I thought, you know, Tom Ford's a little out of my league. So, all right, is that any better?
It's fine. It's fine. I'm just gonna thank you, of course, for being here. I'm so glad. Thank you for doing this and inspiring folks like Taylor and all of us, and me too. Every time I talk to you, I learn something and want to get out there and just make something more myself. So thank you for being here and for sharing your experience with us.
Oh, my great pleasure. My great pleasure. For a great cause.
I look forward to seeing you in a room soon.
Okay, likewise. Thank you so much.
Take care, my friend. Des McAnuff, everybody, an incredible director, wonderful guy, so smart, so smart. You know, we'll get in that Tom Ford article again about the lighting, maybe next time. I want to thank him again for joining us. Thank all of you. And Scarlett, thank you for digging up that album. But you heard Des, don't listen to it. We should respect that. I'm going to listen to it. I will honor what I said too. I will throw another $1,000 into the Actors Fund coffer for finding that so fast. I mean, I should have known better, but it's going for a good cause. So I'm going to do that. Please don't let that stop you from making a donation yourself. That would mean a lot to everybody. I'm so glad you all are here. What else do we have to say? Tomorrow, no, not tomorrow. It's a long weekend, everybody. Enjoy the long weekend. Enjoy your long weekend as much as you can in this madness. And we'll be back on Tuesday, just to give you guys a sense of normalcy. We're going to take Monday off. We're going to be back on Tuesday with the lyricist and book writer Lynn Ahrens. Once on This Island, Ragtime, Seussical, a ton more. Great lady, super, super smart. She's like, I remember I worked on Ragtime, and I remember just sitting there listening to her words. Also, I wouldn't want to like try to beat her in a crossword puzzle contest. The woman knows some words. Let's also remind you that you can check out all the replays. Don't hesitate to scroll back. You got 3 days now, right? Without us. I'm sure you're heartbroken. 3 days without a new episode. So take this opportunity to go watch the replays from Daddy Longlegs and all the other ones we've had. We're up to like 53 or something like that. And lastly, we are going to go out like we always do with something to make you smile. So America has some, or actually the world, because this is like the third or fourth, some amazing families. Here is another family that has done a video called If Broadway Songs Were About Quarantine, and it's a medley. The Hofstetters, or I think that's their name, they've got like 412,000 views of this video already. They do Wicked, they do Hamilton, they do Annie, all parody songs, all chopped up and put into one. And they've got a whole bunch of other videos. You should check it out. I went down a Hofstadter wormhole, YouTube hole, just a few moments before the episode started. So go let that put a smile on your face, and we will see you on Tuesday. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for everything you do for the Actors Fund. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Getting the band back together.